Hello, everybody. This is Neha, and I am the Marketing Director at GreatNonprofits. Welcome to this webinar on video storytelling. Today, we're going to be telling you how to create your own donor stories. For all those of you who are joining us for the first time, GreatNonprofits is the leading platform for community-sourced stories about nonprofits. And today, we are very excited to have Perla Ni and Daniel Kadvany join us to talk to you about video storytelling and donor stories. Before we get started, we just want to share with you a quick example of one of the stories that we have recorded as a part of this Giving Stories initiative. So I'm just going to start playing that for you guys right now. So with that, I'm now going to hand over to Perla so she can start and take us through the webinar for today.
Thank you, Neha. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. This is the third of our series on how to engage your donors using stories. I'll be taking you guys briefly through why stories matter, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of how to create your own donor stories. Next. So what we'll cover today is the importance of storytelling, our Giving Stories initiative, our learnings, how do you create powerful donors, and how do you maximize your impact in sharing these videos. So as you guys know, GreatNonprofits is a storytelling platform. We have more than 320,000 stories from 36,000 nonprofits. Most of these stories have been in the form of reviews and text stories. Next. As you'll see, so there's a picture of me and Daniel, who will be speaking. As you guys know, the importance of stories is so vital in today's communication medium. Next. If you look at, for instance, the story of Malala, she talks about how she was inspired to do her work by the story of the person that she was named after, who was a Afghani folk hero, who in this legend, she helped win this battle when all the other men had failed. And when she tells stories like this, it breaks through to our unconsciousness, and we remember these stories, we remember these things, and they inspire us to action. Next, I'm going through pretty quickly here. Many of us have been inspired to give after hearing about a colleague, a friend, or a family member's transformative giving experience. So if you look at those two examples there, we're on slide 9. You can see how stories can inspire other people to give, and you can see how your own donors are inspired to give. The reason why stories are powerful, on slide 10, is that we know from this research that it's actually called brain coupling, that the neurons in the brain of a person listening to the story actually start firing the same way that the neurons in the brain of a person telling the story is firing. Slide number 11. So that means is that the listeners to a story is actually experiencing the same thoughts and emotion as the person telling the story. I mean, this is probably the most effective communication that you can have. So on the GreatNonprofits platform, we use storytelling as a mechanism for engaging and inspiring our users to give to nonprofits like yours. We've got 8 out of 10 donors who say that our platform influences our giving, 9 out of 10 who says that our platform helps them understand a nonprofit's mission, and 9 out of 10 donors who say these stories help shape their opinion about a nonprofit. These stories can be amplified. This is slide number 13. So as you guys know, social plays an increasing part of your fundraising efforts. 35% of all donations is influenced by social. 21% of all P2P fundraising donations are through social media. Next. So increasingly, even as we think about format, slide number 14, you start thinking about what are the right formats, for instance, for video stories that you're going to be putting on your social media. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So here's a quick poll. Which storytelling formats are your donor stories in? And you can answer these on the right-hand side. You have a little panel: written story, audio, verbal story, video story, just in-person sharing, perhaps at a donor event or at a board retreat, or other. And Neha, when those results come in, if you wouldn't mind sharing those.
As you can see, these are the results of the poll.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for participating in that. So let's go on slide number 16. You know, we really need, in this day of so much clutter, you know, in terms of being bombarded with advertising that follows you everywhere online, how do we really break through this clutter? You know, some digital marketing experts say that Americans are exposed to about 4,000 to 10,000 advertisements daily, which is crazy. So think about how can your messages really stand out amongst all that clutter. So that's kind of what led us to this, what we thought was this research gap. What was the data showing how can donors tell these stories effectively so that they actually impact giving to nonprofits? So that's the beginnings of our Giving Stories initiative. Slide 19. This is a 2-year research study to measure the impact of video donor stories on giving behavior. We were fortunate to have the support of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in conducting this research. And we collected and analyzed and shared a diverse set of donor stories, and then we tested on our website and on our social networks which was the best format and the best content that actually drove giving. So there's a few examples on our website that you can see. It's on different portions of our homepage depending on your location. And we have over currently 60 giving stories on our website. Slide 21. These are some of the organizations that we worked with to get these donor stories. Most of them were giving networks. Next. And our goals were really to help nonprofits understand donor perceptions and motivations, create learnings that we could share with you all guys all through webinars and toolkits, and really use our platform at Great Nonprofits to test out these learnings so that you're getting field-tested results. Our testing methodology was really to put these donor stories on these city pages for metro areas in which these donors live. So depending on where you live, when you go to the greatnonprofits.org homepage, you might see a video, if we have one, of a donor in your area. And then we tested the impact of these stories on website metrics, such as bounce rate, time on the site, and other donation activities. And then with that, let me turn it over to Daniel, our head of product marketing for our website. Daniel, do you want to say more about the testing?
Absolutely. Thank you, Perla. And just as Perla mentioned, a big part of the motivation for this project is gaining a deeper understanding of donor behavior through data and then sharing those learnings with folks like you in the hopes of garnering more engagement from your current donors and your prospective donors. So the way we ran these tests on our website is, as Perla mentioned, if you go to greatnonprofits.org, either directly or through a Google search, the vast majority of our traffic is searching for something like nonprofits in San Francisco, California. They want to find organizations in their area that they can get involved with. So they land on what we call a city page, which is a page of nonprofit organizations and stories from that area. So what we wanted to test is if we add a variety of different formats and types of donor stories to these pages, how is this going to impact the behavior of prospective donors to our site? And those metrics we looked at as listed are the bounce rate. So what this means is the number of people who come to the website and then leave without doing anything else. So generally a lower bounce rate is good because it means they're engaging with content on our website. Time on site, the more time spent on site, the more engaged the user is. And then engagement activities. So we separated our engagement activities into 3 buckets. Browsing, so clicking around the Great Nonprofit site to look at different cities, different categories, and that sort of thing. What we call engage, which is an action like clicking to read a story, writing your own story, clicking to volunteer. And then the 3rd bucket, the most valuable, is the donation bucket. So any click or action related to a donation on the site. So we evaluated the impact both on these high-level bounce rate and time on site metrics, and then very specific actions the user took on the site when we added our donor stories. So moving on, we had 2 specific areas of testing we wanted to focus on. The first area is that we had a very strong hypothesis that video was the most impactful format for stories compared to a blog post or a photo-based story or that sort of thing. So this was a hypothesis we decided to test by adding videos to certain pages and then creating photo-based or blog post-based stories. And here you can see an example on the slide of a video on the left for Larry Fox or Friends of the Children, and then a photo-based story that linked to a blog post. So we add these to the same page, show them to the same number of visitors, and then they evaluate the impact on the metrics I mentioned on the previous slide. So that was the first type of testing. The hypothesis is video the most impactful format? The second area of testing, the spoiler, is that we did prove that video is the most impactful format. So we wanted to figure out what type of video should you be producing. And what we tested here is a longer form video, so something that was around 2 minutes in length, versus a short, snappy, short form 30-second video that we added voiceovers and captioning to in the style of videos you're familiar with that are seen on mobile or social networks. So our hypothesis there was that, as Perla mentioned, people have, they're bombarded with a lot of things trying to get their attention. They have short attention spans. The short video is probably the best format. So we wanted to test that hypothesis as well. Our results. So we're talking to you about video here. There's probably no surprise that the type of video that was most impactful over a text or a photo-based story was the video. So what's really exciting here is there was a substantial decrease in the bounce rate, as high as 50% on our website. So that means that users came and they wanted to watch through these videos. And the videos fully doubled the number of actions across the board that the users take on the site. So users are much more engaged when video was shown to them. And lastly, and most exciting, these events were biased towards these higher engagement events like an action or specifically a donation. So adding video produced an average of 38% increase in the number of users who clicked the donate button or went through our donation flow, which was very exciting. And then the second piece here is for our second set of tests, video format, where we just tested the exact same short video versus a longer video. The shorter video drove substantially more engagement, so almost 50% more, and then substantially more donation actions as well. So those short form videos are truly the best way to tell donor stories, and that's where our focus is going to be throughout the rest of this presentation in terms of giving you some guidelines as to how to go about that. And there's also other benefits to creating these donor stories. It's not just for new or prospective donors or generating awareness of your organization, it's for deepening engagement with your existing donor networks. So the donors who participated in filming the 60+ videos Perla mentioned, they really enjoyed the process. They liked to tell their story, and probably most importantly, they love to share their video. 58% shared their video with their family, 42% shared their video with their social networks, and half said their giving circle shared their video with its membership. So this is really exciting from a nonprofit perspective, where if you produce these stories not only does it make your existing donors feel happy, they're going to share this and give you more awareness with this new asset that they're really excited about having. So that was really neat to see as well. Moving on here, and you can see some reactions to these folks, not the data, but how they actually felt when they were creating a video. So people were very excited to be a part of this project. Neith Senkofa said, "I give thanks for this project." Lara Pearson said that these videos are perfect to share with my stakeholders. Like, all these things are really great data points to see that people love participating in this project, and that's going to deepen their ties to your organization when you create a video like this. And then this is really an invaluable marketing tool. Like, you have a story that you can use to simultaneously engage your current donors and attract new donors, which is incredibly exciting. And that's why we're so happy to be able to share the toolkit that we've put together, in which Perla is going to walk through in more detail of how to actually build these videos.
Thanks, Daniel. So we'll jump into some nitty-gritty, and you don't have to write all the stuff down because we will be emailing you in the next day or two the toolkit, so you'll have it all in front of you. But I just wanted to kind of go over at a high level on how to create your own donor stories. So it's going to be, there's a URL that we're going to be sending you with a list of this toolkit, as well as sample templates. You're going to be able to download checklists, worksheets, sample outreach emails, and questions that you can use to interview your donors. So we'll skip to, this is the next couple of slides are all around the tools that will be available to you. So let's go to slide number 36. The first step is to really kind of select a donor event and a location. So it is the most cost effective if you can get a lot of donor stories at one place by hiring a videographer who can come to an event. So some of those ideas could be like at your holiday party, at your board meeting, at your annual retreat, where you're going to have a bunch of donors attending, and you can find kind of a separate room that is relatively quiet, and then you can have a videographer set up and be available to interview people at that event. And that's where primarily we've done most of our videos, is look for holiday parties or board retreats or demo days in which a lot of donors are going to be there. And then we've worked with a local nonprofit to then recruit the donors at the event to say, hey, here's an opportunity, please tell your giving story. It'll only take 10 minutes, and donors actually really enjoy being asked to share their story, and in our experience, they've been very happy to get interviewed for their stories. Next, so we have a sample outreach email template that you'll get in the toolkit. Next, we have some script interview questions, and you can feel free to use your own or use these as a starting point. These questions are meant to elicit responses that listeners can then relate to on an emotional level. So questions around, what inspires you to give, what have you gained by giving, what has surprised you about giving, what are the mistakes or challenges you've had in your giving, and then, obviously, how is your nonprofit special to you? Logistically, you want to identify videographers. Websites like Thumbtack, Upwork are easy for you to find local talent at a comfortable budget. Our toolkit will also have a few recommendations for videographers that we've used and have good success with. Next slide is some logistics around filming the videos. The most important thing is a well-lit room, a quiet area, and then, just giving your videographer some instructions around, getting close and really capturing the emotions and expressions on your subject faces. Next, there's a brief, kind of video memo that we provide to our editors. We'll provide that to you as well in the sample toolkit. Next. In terms of editing the video, as you guys have heard from Daniel, short videos do much better. In our experience, most viewers drop off at 42 seconds. So just keep that in mind. Definitely, consider making your videos under 2 minutes. And what we sometimes do is have a short version and a long version. So we use a short version for something like social media, and then a longer version for perhaps an event where you can play this at a gala or at a dinner or something. Next, we add subtitles to all of our videos, and that is because on social media like Facebook, most videos are auto-played. 82% of videos on Facebook, for instance, are played without a sound. And so with subtitles, that means that people can watch it at work, people can watch it at home, and they can kind of get the gist of the video without having to disturb other people. Focusing on donors and their emotions, a lot of the editing is, giving your editors the permission to focus on those emotions and highlighting kind of what really inspires your donors to give. So in your thinking about, how do you want the end product to look like, think about how you want people to feel after they've watched your videos. We always provide some BRoll to our editors. So this is like other footage from about your nonprofit. And this is a great way to, add some dynamism to your videos. It's not just a talking head, it's also overlaid with, pictures of your nonprofit at work. Next. We highlight key phrases. So when you see this on Facebook and it's on autoplay, you get the highlights of what they're saying, even if it's if their sound is not on. We use music, and there's plenty of free or reasonably priced options on SoundCloud or Pond5. You guys can check out some of those free music. Next. Next section we'll go over is kind of sharing your donor videos once you have made them. And this is really, really important because we spend probably 90% of our time getting these videos, and then we spend only 10% of time thinking about sharing them. And we really should devote at least half our energies in terms of marketing on how do we share these donor videos. So slide 49. Here's several ways that you can share your videos. Obviously on your website, and as you heard from Daniel, we put them on our home pages, and it dramatically reduced bounce rates and increased donation activity. So put it on your website. 2, social media. 3, email and email newsletters. You can easily add a photo of your video and then link it to, let's say, a YouTube, where people can click on it and watch the video directly from their email that they may get from you, and then playing it at your fundraising events or your recruitment events. It just makes the event so much more livelier when you can kind of show a quick video and people can hear from other donors on why they're giving. Now let's go into kind of a little bit in depth about how do you share these videos. So next slide, as we mentioned, homepage. This is the easiest place where you can show your donor videos. Next slide, Facebook and Twitter. So in every month, Facebook, is the place where lots of people watch videos. Native videos performed better in interactions and shares, about approximately 100% more interactions and 400% more shares. So what you want to do is actually upload the video when you share it on Facebook. You want to tag relevant people and organizations, slide 52. So this is another way in which your donors could retweet the donor video, or other folks who are passionate about your cause, whether it be education or animals, can find it and also retweet you. Next, when let's say you're using something like YouTube, when you do the descriptions and meta tags, you want to tag your donors as well as your causes to make sure that those videos are findable. Email, we mentioned briefly, is a great way to share these videos with your existing donors. According to some studies, the click-through rates in your emails can actually increase by 2 or 3x when the video is included in the email. So we went through this really quickly, and for much more detailed step-by-step instructions, recommendations, we're going to have that for you guys in our toolkits that you can download. Next couple of slides, here's a list of these toolkits where you can download them, and we're going to also be emailing them out to you guys after this webinar. All right, that was kind of like a mile a minute going through all this content. We want to make sure we left enough time for you guys all to ask questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Neha, who's going to moderate the questions.
Thank you very much, Perla. So, we're going to let you guys, give you guys maybe just a minute or so. If you have any questions, please do feel free to, ask them in the question box, which is in your panel.
All right, so this is Daniel, and we're going to start going through some of the questions we've received. And please feel free to continue to add questions. We'd love to give you as much information as possible here. So our first question is, it's around video subjects. So how do you get people who are extremely humble or don't like to take center stage to agree to an interview? Perla, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so you know your donors best, and I would say start off with your board members, because these people who know that their job is to be your evangelist, and the reason why they signed up to be a board member is to be an evangelist for you. In our experience, very few board members say, "Oh, I'm too shy to talk about why I give to you." It's almost part of their board duties that they should be talking to you in a very public way. So I would start with your board members and then work your way down from there. But you would be surprised by how many people actually really enjoy this process and sign up for it, because they realize it's not about them, it's about they're helping you raise money and inspiring other donors.
Thanks, Perla. I'll field the next question. Perla mentioned the benefits of using native video, especially on the Facebook platform, and the question is, what is native video? And a native video refers, we'll talk here about Facebook specifically, to a video uploaded onto Facebook's platform. So Facebook doesn't like it in general when anything that you share takes a user off of Facebook. So like if you share a YouTube link, they don't give that as much exposure as a video that's uploaded directly and plays within their platform. This is the reason you see like Facebook pulling in news sites content into their feed so that you don't click to the New York Times site, you read it on Facebook. This is their philosophy, and so they penalize you if you don't use their tools. It's really easy to do so, and it's important to do so because we all have large audiences who use Facebook. And this is the most effective way to reach them. The next question is around, somebody asked if these slides will be provided after the sessions, and absolutely. We'll send out both the full set of slides and links to all of the resources that Perla mentioned. Our next question would probably be a good one for Perla, and this is around BRoll. Someone's asking, what is BRoll, and if we advise using BRoll, and their example is a donor interacting with volunteers for their animal patients. They work at a marine mammal center. Perla, do you want to talk about our philosophy on BRoll a little bit?
Yeah, BRoll is like the action videos that you might have of your nonprofit in action. So if you're in a mammal center, you've got pictures of your seals and your animals. If you're at a homeless shelter, you've got pictures of volunteers volunteering. So it's anything that really kind of shows your nonprofit in action. And if you don't have video, you can use photos. And so the editors can kind of slice in the photos of your organization's work alongside with the video of the donor.
Thanks, Perla. We've got a couple of questions around the nuts and bolts of video production. The first one is around background music. And the question is the music you listed on these sites actually free, or do you need a subscription? And there are actually both options, but there's a wealth of free background music that's available and should be completely sufficient for your needs. The second question, also around cost, is how much on average should we expect to pay a videographer and an editor? It's a bit hard to give a set number here. Hourly rates vary a lot for videographers and editors, specifically in geography. So like the Bay Area tends to be a more expensive place for these folks to work than it may be in other areas. But the cost per video for about 10 videos would be around $3,000 or so. And take this with a grain of salt. These are just, this is our experience and the folks we've worked with. Either way, there's a wide variety of prices and skill sets available on the freelancing platforms we discussed, and I'm sure you can find someone who does work that will fit your budget. The next question here is going a little deeper into the native versus sharing YouTube links, and the question is a really good one, which is around balancing growing your own YouTube channel versus the benefit of sharing the native videos on a social network. And there's really no right answer here. Like this is the tough question that a lot of folks who care about Facebook need to balance. My recommendation here, or the way we look at these things, is it's important to reach people where they are. And if they're on Facebook, the best way to reach them is with these native videos. And you have the opportunity of growing your relationship and your YouTube channel with them in a bunch of different ways if they're already watching your video on Facebook. So my advice would be to care potentially a little less about growing your YouTube channel as a goal here if you think most of your audience is on Facebook. If for some reason you have an audience that's on YouTube, maybe that's not true. So it really does depend on your particular, the folks who donate and volunteer for your organization. But my guess is they're probably on Facebook because everyone's on Facebook. We've got another question around video length and cost. And the question is, which video length is best, 30-second or 2 minutes? And it really does depend on how you plan to use these videos. I would say that both from a cost perspective, shorter videos are cheaper. And from a impact perspective, if you plan to use these things on social media, especially, short is better. Like this is what gets people engaged, and this is what they're used to seeing. It's unlikely they're going to spend 2 minutes watching a video on your website, or especially in their YouTube feed or Facebook feed. This is not necessarily the case if you have a deeper, Perla mentioned, a gala or a fundraising event, like an in-person event, where you want to go deeper, and then a long-form video is great for that. We've been lucky enough to have the resources to produce both short and long-form videos for these different approaches. But it does depend on how you plan to use the video. I think you get the most bang for your buck from a short video. And what's the typical cost for a short video is a follow-up question here. Per video, this would probably be anywhere from $200 to $500, depending on the amount of B-roll you include, the amount of editing required, etc. And then there's a follow-up question for Perla around recruiting donors. And the question is, when you're recruiting donors, do you look for donors who are charismatic and appealing on camera?
Absolutely. You want like folks that people would want to hang out with and have a beer with and be like, I want to, join this nonprofit because this person seems like they're having so much fun. They're gaining so much out of donating to this nonprofit. I want to be like that person. So yes, absolutely. You want to find people who are expressive. They don't necessarily need to be charismatic, but people who are expressive and can really kind of convey the passion they have about giving to your nonprofit. And sometimes those are, not your most likely donors. I have to say, we've had a number of donors who I thought, wow, I don't really know if they're that charismatic, but when we got them talking about their favorite nonprofits, they became so animated, so passionate. So it's not necessarily a personality type, it's more of how passionate they are about your organization, and can they smile on camera and convey that in a friendly way.
So that's it for all the questions we've got. We'll give everyone a last couple of minutes in case you have anything else you want to ask. But otherwise, we'll end the webinar here.
I'll just make one more comment about this. So in this process, we have engaged so many donors in telling their video stories, and I can't stress how much they really enjoy it. Your donors feel flattered that they're being asked to tell their stories. When they see these videos, they definitely feel a stronger sense of connection to your nonprofit, and that now they've publicly told everyone about how passionate they are about you. And it really makes them feel valued as a donor. So there's kind of a whole host of ancillary benefits to making these donor videos. Not only will you inspire other people to give, but you'll also have done something in terms of stewarding your current donor and making them feel like a valued and involved a person with your nonprofit. Some of the videos we've seen are just, really mind-blowing. Like some of the videos of where we've had intergenerational participants, where we had a mom and her daughter talk about why they were involved in this one nonprofit. And it was amazing to see kind of like, how this created a relationship and enabled the parent and the child to have another dimension in their relationship, something that they had in common to talk about this nonprofit that they both were involved in. So there's a ton of ancillary benefits to inviting your donors to create these videos, and it gives you a chance to ask them to do something other than give you money, and it gives you a chance to kind of really engage them with your nonprofit. So contact us if you have any questions, but we're excited to be providing these toolkits to you, and we look forward to hearing good news from you guys on how you end up using these donor videos.
Perla, we've actually just had a couple of questions come in that I think would be great to address here. And a really important one is, the question is, what's the best way to go about getting board approval for adding this marketing method?
We typically don't ask our board members. I mean, I feel like, I don't think it's one of those things where you need your board to approve it as a board, but, you want to ask individual board members to participate. So I would say, just arrange it for your next, holiday party coming up or your board retreat. Just, arrange to get a videographer to come and tell your board members they have an opportunity to be interviewed about why they support your nonprofit. And I think that would be the easiest way to go about it. I don't think you need to kind of make this a formal process and ask your board if this is something that the board would approve. I think you just go and arrange it, and invite individual board members to see if they would like to participate, and then they can opt in.
And Perla, we've got another question that I think your perspective on would be great. And the question is, what are your recommended best practices for structuring your stories in a way that helps solicit donations?
Yeah, so, given that, such a cluttered media landscape out there, you need to start off strong. Like, you need to start off with a hook. So the way that we think about our stories is that, like, start off with what is surprising about the story. So you'll probably capture 10, 15 minutes of footage, and then your editor will be editing that down to 30 seconds, 42 seconds. You're going to take the most interesting piece of what your donor says and put that at the beginning. And then you want to end also with a compelling story or anecdote that really leaves people a positive feeling. So thinking about those kind of bookends, start with something surprising, end with something that is positive, and kind of then putting the rest of the content in between, but making sure that you have really strong bookends for your video.
Great, and thank you so much, Perla and Daniel. That was really helpful, and we got a lot of great suggestions from you. And I can only imagine how using these tips and tools are going to be extremely, extremely valuable for all of you guys listening in today. Just a reminder that we'll be sending you all an email with the slides and the recording of this webinar. We will also send you all the links, all the toolkit download links that we mentioned in this webinar. And it would be really, really helpful if you could all fill out the survey that's going to pop up after this, the webinar ends. And finally, thank you all very much for giving us your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody.